Hello and welcome to this video. We're here today. We're going to talk about being iterative and being incremental. How do you develop iteratively and incrementally? Let's jump right in here. So let's start out with iterative. These are just ways of developing any product or service. Everybody does these things. It's, the way you build a house or the way you develop a new service for your customers. You use one of these approaches or maybe a combination of them. So let's talk about iterative first. So iterative would be where you take an idea, right? He has some sort of general idea of what he wants, but not a really clear picture. This one down here is going to be when you have a really clear picture. But you have a general idea and you go, you know what, I'm going to sketch this out first. Once I have the sketch out, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to add a little bit more layer on top of that, the color. Make sure I get the color placements right, get the balance just so. Once I get the balance in there, then I'm going to finalize all the shading and add the richness of the colors and so. But you can see how this is taking it from a sketch to roughed in to completed design. The incremental approach takes a slightly different approach. You end up still with the same result in the end. But the incremental approach is great when you know exactly what you're going for. Like, I know what I'm creating. I am going to build one chunk of it first. And once I'm done building that chunk, I will add another chunk to that. And once I'm done building that chunk, I can finally add the last chunk, right? A great example of this is I used to work at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle. And you wouldn't think of buildings being built iteratively or incrementally. Usually you'd think of them being iteratively. You lay up the walls, then you put on the sheetrock, and then you add the paint, or you tape it, and then you paint it, and then that's the iterative way, right? But the whole building at the Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, which was part of the Fred Hutchinson group of companies, the Cancer Care Alliance was built to be incremental. So it was actually designed to be a horseshoe, but only one half of the horseshoe was completed. And then where the rest of the horseshoe should have continued, they put on a sheeting, a housing on the outside of the building that was insulating enough, but it was easily removable. It wasn't as permanent as the rest of the outside skin on the building. That's what they called it, skinning the building. So this skin was left so that when they wanted to come back and had the funding to finish rounding out the rest of the horseshoe, they could come and do it. And actually, I just heard recently, and it's been a decade since that building was built, I just heard recently that they're thinking about actually finishing out that horseshoe. So they, 10 years ago, built a building, and now they're going to build the rest of it out. And once they're done building it out, they will take down that little piece of housing that goes between the two. It's on the outside right now. It goes between the two. But that's the idea of being incremental. So this is great. One of them works when you have an idea. The other one works when you have a conceived something that you already know. But there's another approach that combines the two. If you have a customer who has an idea and a creator who is working and making that thing go, who's creating that thing, how do you work together? Well, do something called iterative and incremental. So a customer typically, like this, they'll know it when they see it. And so as a creator, you say, great, well, let's start with this. And the creator sketches out this first sketch of the half of a woman's face. The customer says, I want a painting of a woman. Great. Let me start with a sketch. Here's a sketch. Oh, the customer's like, that looks really good. Give me more. So he sketches a little bit more. And then the customer sees it again and goes, oh, that is really that's not what I wanted. So you're able with this approach to pause and adapt. Go, you know what? That's not what I wanted. Can you fix it? Can you make it better? And you haven't taken it all the way to finish yet. You haven't put in a whole ton of effort. You're minimizing your risk in this case because you're doing this little sketch of a little bit first. He hasn't even sketched out the whole painting of the woman, and yet gets enough feedback that his customer can say that she wants it differently. So then He goes back and does a new sketch. Oh, that's much better. I like that. I like the lighting there. I like the turn of the head. Okay, so then the creator says, okay, so let me back this up. So I will then create another increment, and I will iterate on this first element, right? So it's just sketched out. I will create another sketched out of the back of this person's head, and I will iterate on the first section. So there, the designer, she iterates and creates the color, adds the color in, and creates the sketch of the back of the head. Oh, that's great, says the customer. And okay, so let's go a little bit further. Okay, the creator says, great. I will then create a new sketch of the front of the woman in the painting. I will add color to the back of the head, iterate on that one. So I'll add an increment here, an iteration here, and I'll take this another level to more detail, more finished product. So here we go. Next time around, you get to see this. Oh, this is exactly what I was hoping for, or I can get some tweaks on that. And you're not having to redo the entire painting, but they're redoing just a part of it. And then you've got the color filled out in the back of the head here and a new increment of sketch in the front. And they do that again, finishing the back of the head, adding the earring, adding color to the front, and finally finishing the sketch for the back and adding and going forward. So you can see by this, the other thing that I didn't say was in this process, you started with the most important aspect, right? The face is what's going to capture the most attention. It's what sets the tone and the mood for the painting. And so the artist started with the face and then went to the back of the head, because the head is what really makes the painting. And in this, then they conceptually had to decide whether they do the front or the back first. Well, probably the front. The back is going to be just back. So they did the front side and then the back side. So you can see how they worked from most important to least important. Conceivably, you could have finished the painting right here, left the back of it kind of, let that blend in a little bit and left it kind of sketchy, and it would still be okay. And you didn't have to take it to the final, but of course we're glad that they did. So the question that often is asked is, is Agile always the right answer? And we'll take a look here at a model for determining when is Agile appropriate and when is something else appropriate. But before I go to that, I want to remind you to go back to the deck where we talked about Agile is not a noun, and take a look at that video, because you need to be careful that you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Agile is an adjective. It describes a state of being nimble. You need to be agile when you need to be nimble. Now, today, most industries actually you do need to be nimble. So it's going to be a more often than not scenario, but it's not always. It's not every case. And I just want to make that really clear. So go back to that video and watch the Agile is not a noun video, and it talks about sizing your build cycles to the change cycle. So here we have a matrix that you can see along the horizontal axis. We have your delivery knowledge. So your understanding of how you create and how you deliver the products and services that you're delivering to your customer. So this would be like using construction as an example. I can go to a general contractor and ask them, I need to add an addition to my house. How long is it going to take? And they can give me a really good estimate as long as I'm using the commonly used materials, right? If I'm just doing a regular old 2x4, 16-inch on center studs with sheetrock and regular latex paint, regular lighting, normal electrical requirements, normal windows, normal roof, everything, as long as I'm just following the general normal stuff, they can give you a great estimate because they have high delivery knowledge. They know how to build those things. They've built them before, many times before. If I am asking them to build something that's really unique, that's out of the box, I'm going to ask them to build one of those energy efficient houses that's made out of hay bales, right? The general contractors never built with hay bales before. They would have a low delivery knowledge, and they could not give me as good of an estimate. They couldn't give me a good estimate on cost. They couldn't give me a good estimate on time. They couldn't give me a good estimate on anything, right? The budget for it, they really don't know because they haven't worked in that a whole bunch, unless they were, the people that build those things. So the other thing here, the vertical axis, is your requirement stability. So if you are building something that you know is steady, you know what the requirements are, they're not going to change, particularly in the time it takes you to deliver, that if you have a stable up here at the top, if your requirements are really stable, then you know that there's not going to be change, right? It's possible, though, that you are in a highly volatile environment. More and more industries are moving towards this, right? We talked in the video on where we talked about the Sony timeline, right, and innovation cycles. That was the Agile is not a noun video. Again, you're going to go back there and take a look at that one. It talked about how much faster things are moving today. That in the 70s and 80s there was somewhere between 9 and 7 years of cycle time between product innovations, and today in the 20-teens the innovation cycles are on the order of months, right? You need to be innovating in the order of months, so your requirement stability is going down over time. And so that's why I said, things are moving more towards needing to be agile in most industries. So if you're up in the upper right-hand corner up here in the high stability of requirements and high process, I know what I'm doing and I know how to do it. I know what I'm doing and I know how to do it. Then a traditional sequential model makes sense because you know what you're doing and you're not going to change in mid-process. You don't need to be iterative. You don't need to be incremental. You just need to get it done, right? So it's possible that getting it all done is one way to go. If, on the other hand, you have low requirement stability, you don't know what's going to happen, but you know what you're delivering and how to deliver it, right? But if your customer is going to be changing, then you may want to deliver iteratively, right? So I'm going to do a little bit, get your feedback, and then iterate on that. If you have high requirement stability but low delivery knowledge, it's something that you know isn't going to change, some federal requirements or something like that. But as far as how to implement it, we don't really know how to implement it, right? Then you want to be incremental. It's clear what your requirement is, right? You're that second, that incremental delivery. I'm clear on the picture in my head of what's going to be. I just can't get it all out at once, but I want to get some of it out. And I don't know exactly how to deliver, so I'm going to limit my risk by delivering a small amount of it at a time, right? And then obviously the last section is going to be iterative and incremental. When you have low requirement stability and low delivery knowledge, you absolutely need to be agile, right? You need to be, that's where you need to be nimble, right? Truly nimble, delivering quickly and iterating on what you deliver so that you're able to adapt to the changing context that you have as a business. So that's it. We talked about iterative and incremental delivery. We talked about what they are, how to combine the two, and then when you need which kinds of things. Nobody else talks about this model. This is something that I developed and have created. So if you've got questions, love to hear them, and I'll see you in the next video.